Oh, we're on? Sorry. Welcome back, everybody, to Pop Reads from the Book of Carolla. In 50 years, we'll all be chicks. Now, they were giving me a hard time because I messed up a lot of times last week and they made me get some new glasses. And it's been the holidays. I gained a few extra pounds here. And I shaved to try to look a little younger. But we read before about airports, and today we're going to read about that's entertainment. Let's get down to business. I've had the good fortune to work in a variety of jobs in Hollywood: radio, television, film, the internet, gay pornography, you name it. And I've always been a fan, so I feel well qualified to tear the mass media a new asshole. TV and other mescality. I love television. I wasn't raised on television, I was raised by television. I watched 9 hours a day back when there was nothing on. Imagine how much I watch now. As a matter of fact, it kills me to write this book because I'm not watching TV right now. If only someone could make a TV show about me writing a book. That would be awesome. Network television followed about the same arc American car companies took from the early 70s till now. Back in the 70s, when there was no competition like cable, satellite, etc., you got such gems as the Brady Bunch, Hawaii Five-0, Dukes of Hazzard, and the list goes on and on. Now I know a lot of you wax-nose nostalgic about this show, about those shows, but it's not because they were good. They were pieces of steaming shit. The reason you like them is because the shows were all on when you still had hair and weren't in love with in a less loveless marriage. But make no mistake, the Brady Bunch sucked. What's this have to do with cars? Well, before cable hit our television and Toyotas hit our shores, we had a heart-to-heart with the AMC Matador. Two American piles of shit. Now we have lost to the Z06 Corvette. See what you can do when you've been pushed by competition? The Biggest Loser. I've never seen The Biggest Loser, but I have seen the commercials because they play the shit out of them around 7 p.m. when I'm trying to eat. A cavalcade of morbidly obese dudes with D cups, stretch marks, and manhole-sized areolas are herded in front of me in a spaghetti and meatballs. When did it become okay to show man boobs on prime time? I could make a pretty big, compelling argument as to why it was more offensive and emotionally scarring for my kids than seeing chicks' boobs. Couldn't they have thrown like a wife beater on these fat assholes? The guy already has to go to the zoo to be weighed. Do you have 5 ounces of cotton that would make him that would make a difference on him? I don't care whether you have a penis or a vagina. Either you need a sports bra or you don't. Of course the chicks wear a top. They're covering up those positive side effects of obesity, which is big jugs. So let's quickly review the retarded society we've crafted. If I turn on Survivor and a hot female model is scrambling up a cargo net and a half-inch of her ass crack can be seen over her bikini line, it needs to be pixelated by the network. But the lactating male long-haul trucker on The Biggest Loser, whose jugs are bigger than anything Russ Myers ever beat off to, is perfectly fine. According to standards and practices, does anyone else want to kill themselves? I'll tell you who the biggest loser is: my junk. MASH hair. I was watching the return of MASH the other day, a show I've seen 2,000 times, as I was marveling at Alan Alda's huge dry mop of 70s hair and BJ's honey-cut pube fro and walrus mustache. It dawned on me. This show was supposed to be about the Korean War. The Korean War took place from the 50s to 1953. Not only did no one in the military have that hair, no one in society had that hair. Trapper John was rocking a full-blown Jew fro in what was supposed to be 1950. Back then, no guy left the house without a handful of pomade, and the only guys with mustaches in the 50s were either the carnival barkers or Latin band leaders, and there was dripping with wax. At least on happy days, they attempted to look like their hair was living in the same decade, until somewhere around season 3 when Ralph Malph said, screw it, I'm gonna get a blow dryer. And that's when everyone's hair jumped the shark. I blame Elvis for this. He made 425 movies in 9 months, which meant that whether he played an Old West gunslinger or an Egyptian pharaoh, his hair always looked like Dick Clark circa 1955. By the MASH By the way, MASH aired from 72 to 83. The show lasted nearly 4 times as long as the event it was portraying. The only other time in television history that happens was Roots. The View. I know I'm a guy, so I'm supposed to hate The View, but I don't hate The View because I have a dick. I hate The View because I have a brain. The View is going on what feels like its 35th season. It has numerous Emmy nominations and even an Emmy win. Wow. And it's a disjointed, scattered piece of shit that's hosted by some of the least compelling, most untalented people that have graced the television set. If this show consisted of 5 guys sitting around talking over each other with the occasional hackneyed joke awkwardly shoehorned into the meaningless conversation, it would have been yanked off the air years ago. You see, at 10 in the morning, all the smart people are at work. And that leaves, well, the View audience. Barbara Walters is about as interesting and as funny as the one old teacher you had in junior high. I know everyone treats her like some kind of national treasure, but she's clearly past her prime. And no one at this show would dare utter a word. It's about the same relationship Saddam Hussein shared with his coworkers. When she finally decides to hang up her dentures and call it an end to her career, there will be a silent celebration akin to what the guards did after the Wicked Witch got the bucket of water tossed on her. On her last show, the lavalier mics will be recording a lot of, "We'll miss you, we'll stay in touch, we don't know how we'll carry on without you," but the internal monologues will skew a little more toward, "Have fun on the Greyhound bus to hell, bitch." Sherry Shepherd is dumb. She's read one book and it's the Bible. She's not a ha-ha funny, she's more of a, we need a fat chick who's not funny. Elizabeth Hasselbeck gets a pass. She's already being punished on a daily basis. Could you imagine if your lot in life was to be wedged between Barbara Walters and Sherry Shepherd? She's the lunch meat. Between a stale piece of sourdough and the dumbest slab of pumpernickel to ever hit the day-old bin in the bakery. Whoopi Goldberg. What happened to the unstoppable force of comedy that had us doubled over with spun gold such as Burglar, Jumpin' Jack Flash, and Eddie? An Emmy for The View and an Oscar for Ghost? She deserves those about as much as Elvis deserved his black belt in Taekwondo. Joy Behar, she's the funny one. That's like saying Marwan al-Shihi was the funniest of the 9/11 hijackers. Oh, way to go, these jerks have to go put on their vacuum now. Jeez, we'll push through it anyway. Cartoons. Now I know what you're thinking. Why in the hell would somebody like me waste a bunch of time writing about cartoons? 2 reasons. 1, I was forced to stare at these things every Saturday morning throughout the 70s, you know? This was a byproduct of my inability to read and my dad's inability to throw a damn baseball. And 2, now that I have young twins and still can't read, I'm forced to watch cartoons in my 40s. Where to begin? Let's start with the most prolific Hanna-Barbera. They're responsible for such gems as Magilla Gorilla, the Hair Bear Bunch, Jabberjaw, Hong Kong Phooey, and Grape Ape. Now I know all you haters are going to say, what about the Flintstones? What about the Jetsons? What about Johnny Quest? Those shows all suck too. They just didn't suck as hard as the big purple ape that kept repeating the phrase Grape Ape over and over again. These shows blew ass while Hanna-Barbera got rich and we got dumb. Hanna-Barbera didn't go programming for kids because they loved kids. If they loved kids, they would have created programming that was interesting, entertaining, informative, anything but that purple ape. They did entertainment for kids because they weren't talented enough to create programming for adults. It's like those bands for kids. Do you think the guys in the Wiggles were sitting around their dorm room 20 years ago and thought, well, we could be the next U2 or Nirvana and bang all the groupies we wanted, or we can make music for 5-year-olds and get some of that sweet, sweet Guatemalan nanny poontang. It's a topic we rarely talk about in our society. We've decided that since the children are our future, I disagree. I say it's the hovercraft, and every single thing done for kids is above reproach. I contend these jackoffs are just preying on the stupidity of children. I contend 200 Peanuts cartoons and never even cracked a effing smile. Yet Charles Schulz made more dead last year than I made in the last decade. Even the legendary Dr. Seuss wasn't exactly Ernest Hemingway. He rhymed box and fox. For everyone. Big damn deal. You didn't think you could have written that when you were high? Back to being robbed of my childhood. These guys who churned out almost as much shit as Hanna-Barbera were Sid and Marty Krofft. There should be a class action lawsuit against these two numbnuts. Hey, if you can sue Union Carbide for poisoning well water, why can't you sue these two assholes for poisoning our brains? Exactly. I was on the CBS lot last year and we were walking to the stage where I was shooting my sitcom. Somebody said, "There's Sid in Marty Krofft's office." Then, with a certain amount of pride, one guy said, "Marty's there. Would you like me to introduce you to him?" I said, "No." He said, "Why not? The guy's a legend." I said, "A legendary hack?" The guy stopped walking. He was shocked. He said, "Do you know how many shows Sid and Marty Krofft got on air?" I said, "I know. I watched them all when I was a kid. Far Out, Space Nuts, Land of the Lost, Sigmund and the Sea Monster, Artistically Vacant. Derivative, hackneyed garbage. Basically a bowl of styrofoam packing peanuts that came in a brightly colored box with a shitty prize in it." He said, "How can you say that? The guy's a pioneer. He's 85 and still hard-working every day." I said, "Hard at work doing what? Warming over steaming piles of cat shit like Land of the Lost so that a new generation's IQ can be collectively lowered while this imbecile hammers another check?" Then he said, "Why are you so angry at Sid and Marty Krofft?" I said, "Because idiots like you are trying to turn these guys into deities. They're rich. Isn't that enough?" They came around during a time when there was no competition and monopolized Saturday mornings with shows like Sigmund and the Sea Monster. One of the worst shows, nay, one of the worst creative endeavors ever undertaken. And now they want respect? I'll give you two scenarios. One is they actually thought that they were artists and that the shit they were crapping out every Saturday morning was good, which makes them delusional hacks. Or two, as I suspect, they knew they were providing shit, they knew the checks would clear, and they didn't give a crap, which would make them evil hacks. Either way, you watch an episode of Far Out, Space Nuts and tell me if the label legend applies. Sitcoms. Let it be noted, when the history books are written, future generations want to know why we're still doing shitty live audience 4-camera sitcoms in 2011, they can blame Two and a Half Men. The genre was almost dead. I was like Jamie Lee Curtis in the first Halloween, catching my breath on a sofa and thinking, thank Christ this horrifying ordeal is over. And then from behind the couch popped up Sheen Cryer and a kid with the thyroid condition and set the movement back 10 years. I did a sitcom pilot for CBS. It was run by 5 women who were sort of like friends of your mom when you were in high school. A little bit scary, not particularly funny, and you weren't exactly sure what they did for a living, but you figured you ought to be nice or you'd get in trouble. Indulge me on a quick sexist rant for 1 minute. Most of the comedy executives that I've dealt with at the network level have been women. Close your eyes and tell me, thank God they shut that damn vacuum up this whole time and they decide to vacuum while I'm reading. Jeez, if I don't have a hard enough time already as it is. Anyway, about 5 women you come across in your life. Thank you. I fantasize I'd be talking comedy with a bunch of fat Jews named Murray who knew exactly what I was talking about. The reality is you get your choice between postmenopausal women, gays, and Harvard grads. The network landscape is littered with people who have never made another human being laugh, not counting the time they tried to throw a softball. But don't worry, they're experts. Like an expert on great white sharks who's never left Wichita. I don't know why it's an accepted fact in this town that you can be an expert on funny without having a funny bone in your body. And I'm including their funny bones, which I'll downgrade to mildly amusing. but somehow they get all crazy away with it. And if you knew how much money these guys, gals, gays made, you would never stop vomiting. Ridiculous. Car commercials. I love cars. I hate car commercials. So why would a guy who loves cars hate slow motion beauty shots of cars cruising down winding roads? Because of the disclaimer. Closed course, professional driver, do not attempt. The goddamn lawyers have to get involved with everything and aspect of our society. They used to just be on the commercial where the guy pulled an e-brake and slid into a parking space in front of a busy cafe. Now the disclaimer is in every shot of the car driving. I've seen them on minivan commercials where the van was going 55 in a straight line on an empty highway to Vegas. Hey assholes, if I'm not allowed to attempt to drive the vehicle in a straight line on an empty highway, what the hell am I buying it for? There was a Subaru commercial a few years ago that showed their competitors' cars driving around on the front wheels with one rear 6 feet off the ground, illustrating that the front wheels drive versus Subaru's all-wheel drive. And then came the disclaimer, do not attempt. How in the F could you attempt to drive a car with the rear wheel 8 feet off the ground? It's sad that we've regressed as a society to the point where we have to put warning labels on shit that's physically impossible. Herpes medication. You've always you always know it's a herpes commercial when the chick is kickboxing, mountain biking, or riding a horse on a beach. I wish I could get genital herpes just so I could start living. Whenever I see a herpes commercial, I always think, poor actress. People in snuff films are making fun of you. Then I realize the worst gig in TV is not the chick playing the herpes queen. It's the stooge boyfriend who has to stand next to her and look understanding while she's talking about not letting breakouts control her life. If you do the math, it's fairly clear she didn't get the herpes from this guy. Her last beau gave her the big H during one of their very frequent pound sessions, and after her first outbreak, he probably moved on to some European lingerie model who is clean as a whistle. Now this sap is left behind to pick up the pieces and use a condom for the rest of his natural life. I wonder how the audition process goes. Here, put on this flannel shirt and try not to look too judgmental. Just a thought. You know how Native Americans get pissy when Mexicans play Indians in movies. I wonder if people with herpes get angry with the people with non-herpes and actresses that depict them. If I was in charge, I would only hire actresses with herpes. And the good news is, there's no shortage of them. Dumb guys in commercials. Look, let's face it, guys are smarter than women. Ladies, please debunch your panties and open your ears. Men build all the bridges, all the dams, go to the moon, etc. In fact, it is a simple fact. I don't want to argue about it. If you don't believe me, go to the patent office where, by the way, Einstein and his penis used to work, and see all the great innovations women didn't come up with. But commercials depict men as simple-minded buffoons. The wife's out of town, the dad's left alone to prepare breakfast for the twins. Smash cut to the guy dumping the waffle batter into the toaster. Or how about the famous Carl's Jr. campaign about how guys would starve without them, featuring a dunce in his mid-30s attempting to make guacamole by putting a whole avocado in a blender. You ladies are lucky I'm too lazy to look up what percentage of Michelin-rated chefs are men. Or the same guy wants to lounge on the sofa all day watching arena football, but his lady convinces him to go with her to the Home Depot to remodel the basement. We would complain about this unfair depiction, but we're too busy running Home Depot and the plant that makes the television the guy on the couch in the commercial is watching, and building, designing, and operating the camera and satellites that make it possible for you to see the commercial that makes us look like retarded chimpanzees. Oh, amen, this guy's a genius. Speaking of inaccurate depictions, I've seen 75 ADT home security commercials, and I've never seen a face darker than Conan O'Brien's involved in the home invasion scenarios. Imagine if an alien came down to the U.S. and just watched TV for a year and then took a tour of our prison system. He would be like, these white criminals are the shrewdest of them all. They commit 100% of the crime and almost never get caught. Public service announcements. We've all seen the PSAs when I was a kid. It was Smokey and the Bear talking about campfire and Woodsy the Owl telling us not to litter. My kids can look forward to Fergie warning us about online predators and Zac Efron explaining the dangers of huffing A copier toner. Radio and TV stations don't run these PSAs out of the goodness of their own hearts or because they're civic minded. The FCC mandates that they run a certain number of them a year or they'll pull their license. We all make fun of the reefer madness type PSAs of yore, but how kind do you think history will be to the ones today like David Schwimmer telling you to talk to your kids? Little known piece of TV trivia. Schwimmer's character was the only one of the friends who actually had a kid. You just didn't know it because he never spoke to him. Dick Van Patten wasn't available, or even the guy who played Joey. You had to get the one friend who was a deadbeat dad. He spent more time with the monkey, and by the way, talk to your kids. This is all you could come up with? How lazy can you be? I used to just grunt at my kids and use semaphore. But ever since the guy who ignored his kids on TV has no kids in real life told me to talk to mine, Harvard, here we come. The most popular PSA on television these days is over the limit, under arrest, one for drunk driving. Now, I know you're thinking, how can this asshole have a beef with the drunk driving PSA? Well, this is why I'm a writer and you're the readee. Simple, gender bias. This commercial shows cops pulling over 6 or 7 drivers, all males. Women don't get DUIs? I'm sure the makers of the PSAs would argue that more males get DUIs than females. Fine. But from here on, every AIDS PSA has to start with, attention fags. PSAs aren't limited to your TV set. Hopefully your town has not degenerated to this point, but half the municipal vehicles, garbage trucks, cop cars, and so on in Los Angeles have a bumper sticker that reads, Stop Senior Abuse. Between these bumper stickers and the barbed wire around the freeway signs, LA has to win the award for the most depressing city to drive in. A stroll through the Holocaust Museum would be more uplifting. How does this bumper sticker actually stop anyone from abusing a senior? I was on the way to Shady Acres to beat the shit out of Nana, but got caught behind a street sweeper and really did some soul searching. I took a long look in the rearview mirror and didn't like what I saw staring back at me. Obviously, this bumper sticker doesn't prevent senior abuse. I bet if anything, it reminds people to abuse seniors. Jesus, that's right. It's been almost a month since Grandpa's felt the cold sting of his own slipper across his weathered face. But it gets worse. Next to the bumper sticker on the same street sweeper is one that reads, Don't abandon your babies. Is this what it's come to? I don't know why this is written in English. I know that sounds like I'm racist, but who's the one assuming I meant it should be written in Spanish? This is not asking you to raise your baby. It's basically saying drop it off at a firehouse instead of the dumpster. In the final tally, I'm sure these bumper stickers do way more harm to the collective psyche of the community than they do good. Thousands of hours and millions of dollars are squandered each year on ineffective no-shit Sherlock PSAs. Meanwhile, barrels and barrels of oil are wasted, and most of those rollover deaths in a Ford Explorer a few years back could have been prevented if the tires had been properly inflated. But nary a word about that. Maybe they'll get to it when they're done with the secondhand smoke and self-esteem. Obviously, our government, the FCC and the Ad Council, the anemic, semi-retarded, hypocritical, money-wasting morons who come up with the PSAs have little to do or little to no interest in having a positive impact on society. I gotta go. I gotta get Schwimmer's agent on the line. I want to see if he's available to cut a PSA on wasting our most precious resource, my effing time. Oh man, how great is this? Movies. I love movies. I love good movies. I love bad movies. I just don't like movies that are mediocre, that are supposed to be great. Let me give you a couple of titles of movies that were mediocre but were huge successes. Little Miss Sunshine. Nominated for Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay, Best Supporting Actress, Best Supporting Actor. It won for Best Original Screenplay, and Alan Arkin won for Best Supporting Actor. As far as Best Original Screenplay, it's like giving Song of the Year to Mary Had a Little Lamb, and Alan Arkin was in the first half of the movie. His corpse was in the last 45 minutes. He played a junkie, sexually addicted grandpa who taught his fat granddaughter to dance like a whore. He didn't have a lot to do in the movie, and it's a role that your grandfather could have pulled off. My grandfather has been dead for 10 years, so he'd require a little more time and makeup. Alan Arkin was fine. But giving him the Oscar for the role was like awarding the Nobel Peace Prize to a guy who broke up a bum fight with a garden hose. Lost in Translation. Another film that qualifies for the Emperor's New Gay Clothes Award. A boring look, how cool I am movie made tolerable by Scarlett Johansson in her underpants that won 4 Best Original Screenplays. I'll bet when Alan Arkin and Sofia Coppola see each other at the Oscar party, they exchange those knowing glances that couples who are screwing around on their spouses with each other do. Can you believe that we got away with that? Tyler Perry movies. Ooh. I don't blame Tyler Perry. It's not his fault he's a horrible writer. It's not that hard to write horribly. It's Oprah's fault for making a star out of a guy who's built an empire around a gun-tooting 250-pound grandmother whose conflict resolution strategy involves threatening to put her foot up yo ass. Dear black community, you don't have to support this guy's subpar products just because he's the same color as you. It's not like I sit around and say to my friends, Rob Schneider's got a new piece of shit coming out this weekend. Let's head to the multiplex. By golly, he's white and we need to support our own. You think I'm being too hard on Tyler Perry or Rob Schneider? I challenge you to watch Diary of a Mad Black Woman or Deuce Bigelow too. Good point. Here's a handful of my favorite movies I left out. Gone with the Wind and Godfathers, because I figured you've seen those. Papillon. Steve McQueen at his best. And if Arkin had an ounce of dignity, he'd drop off his ill-gotten Oscar to the guy who is missing one. Dustin Hoffman for his work in this movie. Love and Death. Woody Allen's funniest joke-for-joke movie. Breaking Away. Funny, underestimated, and a great performance from Paul Dooley. Defending Your Life. Funny, poignant, smart, inspirational. Sad that most of you have seen Happy Gilmore and Tommy Boy 250 times, but have never seen this one. Best comedy of the last 25 years. Lost in America, another Albert Brooks masterpiece that never gets shown on TV. Why Billy Madison has to play on a loop and Lost in America pops up once an Olympic season is not only confusing, but cosmically wrong. Fargo. No better Coen brothers movie. William H. Macy was excellent. Arkin, after you've dropped off the Oscar at Hoffman's place, grab one of those Oscars he's using to hold down the tarp on his barbecue and bring it to Macy's place for his role in Fargo. Saving Private Ryan, best opening 20 minutes of a movie in the last 30 years. Important, moving, almost made us forget we hate Vin Diesel. Election, quirky, funny, dark, all the things Little Miss Sunshine was trying to be. Cars, and all that other Pixar stuff. Entertainment for people Entertainment for people 4 to 93. Oh, I know you thought I was going to say 94, but the cutoff is not a day over 93. Sorry, rules are rules. Overnight, this is a great documentary, but I could have picked 20 others. The point is, you're almost never going to go wrong with a documentary. P.S. Don't call it a doc. Now that Papillon's made it off of Devil's Island, there's a vacancy for all of you people who say doc and curb. No Country for Old Men. No better Coen brothers movie. He just said the other one, Fargo. This is a long chapter and there's 10 more pages, so I'm going to break it up into 2 parts. And you can tune in next week to see the rest. We're going to continue on music.